Well, the weather that we are currently experiencing right here in Nairobi, especially today, is the perfect definition of what we used to write kwa insha pale high school. Kama kuna baridi sana, and that is what you're trying to describe in your insha. Ulikuwa unasema vitu kama kulikuwa na baridi shadidi mithili ya jokovu. Hapo unaongeza zingine nilitetemeka teteme kama umbwa mbele ya chatu. All of that to define cold. Na after umeandika hizo vitu zote bado mwalimu anakupea 15 out of 40 marks. Premium tiers. Now, a very, very good evening, viewers, and thank you so much for joining us this very cold Wednesday evening right here at Kenya's Gold. But best believe we're here to hit things up. There will be so much to learn from now all the way until 7 p.m. when it comes to all matters agriculture. Once again, thank you so much for joining us from whichever part of the world that you are watching us from. Kama kawaida yetu, we do have a great show lined up for you. My name is Violeta Ngina, or the International Farmer. Now, just a quick recap of where we are coming from. Now, yesterday we had a very insightful conversation here in studio talking about all matters sugarcane industry. We did host the CEO of the Kenya Sugar Board, and he did shed more light on the state sugar factories that are being leased. Here we are talking about Muhoroni, Shemelil, South Nyanza, and Sony as well. He also confirmed that they will be in full operation in September. Na kwa wale wakulima ambao wamepeleka sugarcane yao na bado hawajalipwa, they will be getting their payment in 1 month. And here on the program, we will make sure that we follow up on the reforms in the sugarcane sector. But for now, mnajua leo Wednesday ni siku ya kwenda USA to learn so much about dairy farming. Last week, we did show you cows that are producing about 50 to 70 liters of milk per day. Remember, the common breed kept in the United States, in Idaho, where we were, is the Holstein breed, which is a different type of a Frisian breed, and they do milking 3 times a day. After seeing a cow that is producing about 70 liters of milk, I'm sure you are left with a very big question on what do these cows feed on. And right here at Kenya's Gold, hatupendi kuacha hanging, so today we do show you what the dairy cows in the United States eat. Take a look at what we found in our gold feature coming right up. Now, we are outside, still here in Idaho State, the United States of America. Na najua ukiangalia mali nimesimama nyuma yangu, unaweza dhania pengine ni smiti, kuna mjengo tunataka kufanya mahali, but nope. We are learning so much about dairy farming here in Idaho State. Now, I'll tell you an interesting fact. Cows here produce milk of about 50 liters per day per cow. And that has to do a lot with what you feed your cows. So what you can see here are different feed elements with different nutritional values, and we will be speaking to an expert right here in Idaho who will be guiding us on what your dairy cow really needs to eat if it's to give you milk at optimum production. Come along with me, let us meet our feed and animal experts. Thank you so much for making time for us. Even before we get into the conversation on this mountain of food behind me, just start by introducing yourself and telling us what you do in this space of agriculture.
So I'm Mireille Shaheen. I'm a professor and an extension dairy specialist. So I'm a dairy scientist. I've been in my position for 22 years. I work closely with the students, but I work very closely with the industry, such as the dairy where we are at. And I'm also the department head for the Department of Animal, Veterinary and Food Science at the University of Idaho.
Good stuff. Now just start by telling us how important is feed when it comes to the health of your animal and production as well.
Well, for me, feed is the cornerstone for production. Every time I say, if you're driving, you see a dairy, more than half the cost of running that dairy is associated with feed. Feed is really extremely important. It's extremely important for the health of the cows because a lot of the diseases we see in the cows, especially after calving, are called metabolic diseases. They are because the cow is not able to process correctly the feed, or we're not feeding an adequate diet. And production, of course, milk, milk is a good product because it has the protein, it has carbohydrate, it has fat, etc. And those nutrients really come from the feed.
Right.
So the feed is extremely important for our production as well as for the composition of the milk that we produce.
Somebody else will say the breed is the cornerstone. Do you agree to that, or you stick to the feeds being the cornerstone?
They really work together. You cannot produce milk if you don't have good genetics.
Right.
That's very, very important. But also if you have good genetics, we spend lots of money, we have an awesome cow, and if we're not feeding that cow adequate feed and managing that cow adequately, then we cannot get the milk because the cow is not being able to express the genetic that she has.
Right. Let's just start with an overview. What do dairy cows love to feed on?
It's what we call a total mixed ration, and you'll see it's because we mix different ingredients. We'll see we are going to visit a pantry. So we have the different ingredients, and it's amazing that the cows have their own nutritionist. I always say I wish I had my own nutritionist, but
yes,
the cows do. So the nutritionist formulates on the paper a ration, what a cow should eat to be able to express her genetic. And it depends on how much milk she's producing, but also on what stage of lactation she is at. But most of our rations here will include forages, concentrate, which are sources of protein and energy, as well as vitamins and minerals, and in some cases some liquid supplement and water.
Great. Yeah. Let's just start with what we have here. This is a big mountain. If you're far, you'd assume it's a rock, and then you come close and realize, it's food. Yes. What is this? Which feed is this?
This is corn silage, and we rely heavily on corn silage because it's a very good source of fiber as well as energy for our cows. You see it's a pile, it's covered in different places of the United States. You have different format of doing things. Some people put it in bags, but here, just because we're dealing with large facilities, it is a pile. And what you notice is how well we manage the face of that corn silage. We want to make sure that we are not getting a lot of oxygen inside it.
Right.
Because we don't want to have mold or spoilage.
So what do you do to make sure that there's no oxygen going inside it?
Make sure that the face is very flat, because if not, if you have different parts coming out, you get more probability of oxygen going inside.
For how long does it stay here until it's well fermented and ready for consumption?
Actually, within 2 months, it's ready for consumption, and it can last more than a year.
Right.
So this is why we always say, hey, it's better to have more corn silage than less, because it gives you flexibility to be able to feed your cows adequately, especially if the feed cost is high.
And for you to make sure that it stays fit for animal consumption for the entire year, what are those measures that you need to put in place?
So what we need is from the beginning to make sure we're cutting it at the adequate time. It's not too dry, it's not too wet, it has the good amount of grain that we need, and then we actually pack it. It's amazing. We have lots of tractors that drive on top of this and make sure it's compacted, because again, we don't want oxygen to get in there.
Right.
And after that, we cover it, and then we put tires on it to make sure and link them that, everything is tight and secured to be able to feed the cows.
So in the covering, I've seen some areas we have full tires, others it's cut tires. What's happening there?
Yeah, we used to actually, I would say maybe 15 years ago, use more full tires, and then we noticed that we were getting water stuck in there when there was rain, and that was causing mosquitoes. And so we started cutting those tires, and we've seen a significant decrease in the amount of mosquitoes.
Right. Now, Mireille, you also said for our safety, we can't go close to the corn silage. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a safety issue. We always recommend, be careful whenever you're removing corn silage because, it can fall on you. It could be dangerous. So, hay safety is the most important things we do, you know? So, yeah.
Right. So can this be fed to cows at all different stages, or there particular stage, whether it's at birth or calving, that you cannot feed corn silage?
We actually feed corn silage at every stage, but we also ensure that dry cows are not fed too much energy. So it depends. Really, cows don't need a specific ingredient. They need a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of protein, etc. So we can feed it. We just need to ensure the quantity is different based on the stage of lactation.
Define for someone who's trying to get into dairy farming for the very first time and they're wondering, what's a dry cow? What is a dry cow? It's dairy, so they should be having milk. What is a dry cow?
Yeah, a cow typically milks for around 305 days, and then we give her a break. So before she calves again to start producing milk again, we give her around 2 months of a break, and she's dry, so we don't milk her anymore. We let her relax. She would just eat, just stay in her pen, and get ready again to start producing milk in 2 months.
Right, so the dry cows will not need the corn silage because it's high in energy, and they don't need that much energy.
Yeah, they could though. I mean, I'm not saying they don't need it, but they don't need as much sometimes.
Energy.
So especially if the cows are getting too heavy, we don't want them to calve at a very high body condition score because that will create metabolic diseases after they calve.
Right, and I noticed a lot of corn is grown here, but all of it is for animal consumption.
Correct.
That's how you roll down here.
Yes, it's just important to ensure that we have enough feed. Correct.
What are we seeing here?
So this is a fresh cut, actually, grass, and sometimes they will cut some of the grass and bring it fresh to include. This is not very common. It happens more during this time of the year, just because we have access to some of the, such as the triticale, etc.
Right.
But our most common way of actually having forages are through the bales there, which is alfalfa hay.
So this is hay.
Correct. In most our ration, we would feed a combination of corn silage and alfalfa hay. We used to feed a lot more hay, and now we're feeding more corn silages in our ration.
So all this is alfalfa hay.
Correct.
Right, and it's drying in different. For how long does it need to dry until it's ready for consumption?
So they dry it for multiple days, and actually the dairy will transport it here in trucks and put it here, and this can stay ready to be fed again for multiple months.
Right. Yeah. So what is the nutritional element that a cow will get from this alfalfa hay?
So alfalfa hay typically is the two things that we look at and we're interested in feeding. Is it gives us fiber, which is very important to ensure we have a healthy rumen, as well as protein. If you remember the corn silage, I said it's fiber and energy. So it's hay. We're working with both those forages, fodders, to ensure that we're giving the cow what it needs to produce the correct amount, amount of milk that we like.
And the alfalfa hay, is it fed to animals at the different stages, all through the stages?
Yes. Okay. Yes. All forages can be fed to all cows at all stages of lactation. It's just the amount that we are feeding that will change.
Right.
The other thing is the quality. The quality of the hay can also be different. For example, a cow that is producing 45 liters of milk will need a better quality hay than a cow that's not producing milk.
Right.
So the quality of hay and forage we use also will change based on the production of the cow and the stage of lactation.
Good. So now we have another sector here. I believe these are more additions that we put into our forages. Maybe you can take us step by step from the very first chamber that we have here. What is going on here? What is the nutritional elements that we're giving our cow from this particular feed that we have on this side?
Yep, and you'll notice we have multiple feed, the same feed in multiple bins, so we'll focus on some. What you see are here, we see lots of pellets that are protein sources. So we see canola pellets, soybean pellets, as well as, and so what we would do is this Actually, this is beet pulp, and this is a byproduct that we make as a pellet to ensure that it gives us good quality fiber as well as pectin, which is a source of energy for the cow as well.
Right.
It's a byproduct that we see from the sugar beet industry, which is a very important industry in Idaho.
Yeah.
And so we are able to recycle some of those byproducts and use them as a feed for our animals.
Right. And then do you feed them directly in this state, or you have we
mix them. Everything here is mixed. We never actually feed directly the cows. So what we have here is, you'll see some of our again sources of. This is distiller's grain. And so this is a byproduct of the ethanol industry.
Okay.
And so what it does is, after we ferment the corn to produce ethanol for gasoline, for gas, we use the byproduct as a very good source, again, of energy, some protein also. What we see in the byproducts is that they can typically give us multiple nutrients at the same time and allow us to feed the cow adequately and really work on the environment.
Is that the same as what is here?
Correct, yes.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
And then what we see here is different pellet as well. So we have...
This is not the same pellet as the one we saw here?
And they look the same. And this is a protein, actually, pellet. And so this will come from like canola meal. Sometimes you'll see it from soybean meal. And this is giving us the protein that we need in the ration.
Right. How are you able to tell apart this?
Just from the smell, usually.
Oh, from
it's
the
hard
smell.
to say. Yeah.
And this is the same?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Next,
so I want to move a little. This is a fat source, and this is what we're doing here is some bypass fat.
Somewhat fat?
Bypass fat. I'll tell you what, cows don't like to eat a lot of fat because the fat can be sometimes toxic to the rumen. So what we do is we feed some bypass fats, so where it's not used in the rumen and it bypasses fermentation and then can be used as a source of energy to the cow.
So this is the fat element.
Correct.
Good.
Yep.
And
that's
then
the
now?
fat element. And this is one of the most important part of the ration. It's usually very limited.
Why is it limited?
Places. Because it's you know, not everyone can produce corn grain. So this is a source of energy. This is what we use as a source of energy.
What is this?
It's a flaked corn. It's like cornflakes. For like we eat in breakfast, but it's for the cow.
Oh,
so it's flaked corn, because if we feed the corn as is, the grain, then the cow cannot digest it well because she has a hard time breaking the grain, the outside part of the grain. So if we flake it, the cow, the microorganisms that are in the rumen are able to utilize, see the starch we can see here, you know, so the cow can utilize better the source of energy.
Do you export some of your animal feeds from here in Idaho?
From Idaho, we export mainly fodder forages. We actually export hay, alfalfa hay. We export to multiple countries. We've exported to Japan, to South Korea. And I'm biased, but we produce the best hay in the nation.
Why is that? What factors attribute to that?
Two things. One, we are in a high desert. In a way, place. So the cooling at night allow our hay to be of very good quality. And also, we irrigate our hay. So whenever you irrigate hay, you can decide about that this, you know, this is when I'm going to give water. So you can control quality better than if you're waiting for rain.
For rain-fed, all right.
Yeah.
So this is also the cornflakes?
Yeah, this is a different type of, it's a flake corn as well.
Yeah.
It's just a different load.
A flake corn.
But yeah, this is why it's in such large dairies. What you see is different, the same thing in multiple bins. But this is, again, our source of energy.
Right.
Okay. You know, remember you need energy, protein, fiber, minerals, vitamins, and liquids, you know, water.
Right.
Those are the ingredients we look at.
Right. And so when we're mixing our TMR, right, our feeds together, there's water that we need to add. What quantities should we put so that, I mean, the animal can enjoy eating that food?
It really depends on how much water you have in your feed. So if you're feeding a lot of corn silage, you really don't need to add a lot of water. If you're feeding a lot of hay, you do, because hay is really very dry. And what I want to point here is cows like a ration that is around 50% water, 50% dry matter. So if the ration is too dry, the cow will pick and choose what she wants to eat. So it's like giving a kid like cookies and broccoli, vegetables, they're going to decide to eat
cookies.
Cookies,
right.
That's the thing. Okay. And if it's too wet, the cow doesn't like to eat it. It sticks to its nose and doesn't like to eat it. So we ensure that the cow is eating around 50 to 55% dry matter.
All right. And then we have some more feeds in this corner.
Yes. Finally, we have here the cotton seed.
Yes.
And this is also a byproduct of the cotton industry. It's purchased usually from outside of Idaho.
You don't grow cotton at all here.
Not in Idaho.
Right.
But it's a great source of really fiber, protein.
Yeah.
And you see how fluffy it is. So it works very good for in the rumen to ensure that we are having good rumination and fermentation and less metabolic diseases. So this is a great source of nutrients.
Right. So all those feeds we've looked around is what is mixed to make what is going to be eaten by the cows. And so is there a nutritionist who comes in to help you learn what ratio so that we don't put excess in some, little in others? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have a nutritionist that formulate the ration on the paper, and we have them come. They come at least once a week and walk and make sure that they look at, for example, at manure, at the poop of the cow, and make sure, hey, they're not seeing corn. Because if you're seeing corn, it means that your cow is not eating the corn, and then, you know, that's bad because you're throwing the money away.
So they check everything.
They check everything. They look at how the ration is when the cow is fed. Is it the same as when she's done eating, or there is a lot of sorting happening? And then they ensure, they look at those, you know, the mixers. They have computers, and they can check if people are following the rules, if they're mixing what they're supposed to mix, and if not, what they get, they'll get a report that tells them, hey, there is an error. Someone fed 10% more corn than they're supposed to be, and this could cause upset in the cow.
All right.
So looking at the numbers and the data is very important.
All right. Thank you so much, Mary, for that tour in this feed area. There's a lot of food, and like you said, dairy farmers spend a lot of money on making sure that there's feed in their farms. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so in case you were wondering, what are they feeding their cows in the United States that is making it possible for them to get milk of about 70 liters per day? Then you've learned from that feature. And one thing stands out, they do not play about animal feeds, which is quite a costly venture. But at the end of the day, you have to do it if you are to get milk, optimum milk from your cow. And also, she's talked a lot about alfalfa hay. Hiyo ndo hapa nyumbani tunasema Lucerne. We call it Lucerne grass. It is a great source of proteins to your cows. And also another good thing about Lucerne, it is nitrogen fixing in the soil. Ukipanda Lucerne, even as a crop rotation measure, it does increase nitrogen in the soil, and that increases the fertility of your soil. So those are two advantages of the Lucerne grass. Now, as much as dairy farming is very important for us, it also does contribute greatly to climate change due to different factors. And I'll show you one very quick example. If you take a look at what we do have here, this is a cow. It could be Friesian, it could be Holstein, and as usual, cows do feed on grass and different fibers. Remember now, cows do have a special digestive system where the stomach is divided into 4 chambers. All right, so after your cow feeds on grass, it does have the power to convert these feeds, the grass grass and the fiber that it does consume into milk and meat, which we consume as human beings. We heavily do rely on cows to give us these very important nutrient commodities. But in the process of making this meat, making this milk, as the cow is digesting the grass, it does release a gas called methane in the rumen. Remember, I told you at the very beginning, the stomach of a cow is divided into 4 chambers, where we do have the rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomasum as well. And right there in the rumen, we do have a gas that is being released. It's called methane. And the way the cow will release this gas to the air is through farting, okay, or belching. And this gas is a greenhouse gas that contributes to climate change. So this is the cycle from eating the grass. It converts the grass and the fiber into milk and meat. But in the process of doing that, in one of the stomach chambers, they release methane, which makes its way to the environment. And also, there is a different way on how dairy farming contributes to climate change. If you overfeed certain nutrients, you'll also be contributing to climate change. Take a look at how that happens.
So my name is Pedro Sampaio. I am a PhD student from University of Idaho, and I will talk about a little bit of the nitrogen and the protein source of the diets. So basically, we want to feed what the cow needs. We don't want to overfeed or underfeed the cows. So all the diet is formulated to attend certain nutrients, as protein, as carbohydrates, as fat, and we want to feed what they really need, you know. And in the case of the protein, if we overfeed the protein, the source of protein to the cows, they will increase the excretion of nitrogen. And this nitrogen in the environment will produce a lot of, depends on the way, could produce ammonia and could produce nitrous oxide. That is bad for the environment. So that's the reason why we want to feed correctly our cows.
So yes, do remember, as you make the proportions of your animal, if you give it excess proteins that is not necessary for the animals, remember we do get our proteins from grass like lucerne and different other pellets. If you overfeed the proteins, remember you are contributing to climate change, because they will release nitrous oxide, which is a dangerous greenhouse gas, and it does have the power of staying in the atmosphere for more than 100 years. It does cause a lot of havoc to crops and human health as well. So as we feed our animals, and make sure that we are feeding the right proportions to make sure that we are safeguarding our ecosystem. And with that, it's time for us to take our first short commercial break, but we do have a lot more. When we come back, we will be going to the lab